Good evening. Thank you everyone for joining us for our final night of the Virtual Family Forum. My name is Virginia Green. I'm with Family and Community Engagement, and on behalf of our Executive Director, Dr. Liliana Valadez, I would like to thank you for coming on again for our final night. We've shared some great and important information these last 2 days, but if you've missed any of the presentations or you would like to view them again, they will be made available on our webpage beginning next week at dallasisd.org/family. We will have first hear from Dallas ISD Child Find, who will give us information on their services as well as representatives from the Special Ed Department. Next, we will hear information from our Homeless Education Department. And finally, we'll finish up with managing stress with mindfulness. Some quick etiquette before we begin. Just please use the Q&A section of the Zoom bar on either on the top or the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many of those questions live as possible. And if time allows, we will ask the presenters to answer questions at the end of their presentations. However, we will keep track of all questions and forward them on for answers if they haven't been answered this evening. Let's begin with our first presentation. We'll be hearing from two presenters for this one. Ms. Monica Freeman Field will discuss Child Find process, and then we will hear from Ms. Jennifer Rotkamp, who will present on tips for special needs families. Ms. Freeman Field, we'll begin with you.
Yes, thank you. I am Monica Freeman Fields. I'm with the Dallas ISD Child Find and Special Education Office, and I am happy to be here to present about Child Find in the Child Find office. So basically, Child Find is a continuous process of public awareness activities, screening and evaluation designed to locate, evaluate, and identify children from birth to age 21 with known or suspected disabilities who live in and or attend school within the Dallas Independent School District boundaries. So right now we have a menti.com poll for everyone to try out. If you could go to menti.com and enter the code 5683-1659, or you can select the QR code that's there and just use your cell phone to click that QR code, and it will send you to the poll. So if you could go to the poll and answer the question that's there. And the results to the poll are in, and the results show that 5 people thought that the Child Find is a state and federal requirement. 29 people voted that it is a Dallas ISD department, and 40 people voted that it is a directive to locate, identify, and evaluate children in need of specialized services. So we have, of all these votes, everybody was right, because Child Find is all of those things. So I'm very happy that people voted and everyone is right, because Child Find is a state and federal requirement, a Dallas ISD department, and a directive to locate, identify, and evaluate children who are in need of specialized services. So everybody has done a great job. What we have here now is just our Child Find brochure. We provide the Child Find part of our outreach efforts. We provide them to campuses so that they can give to people, so that people are aware of what Child Find is. We provide them at events within the community. We provide them to different organizations. So if any of the people viewing this presentation ever are having some sort of meeting and would like to provide information to the community about Child Find, you can contact the Child Find department, and we will provide some information that you can have for your meeting to inform people of what we have in Dallas ISD with regards to Child Find, the special services that children might be eligible to receive, and the process for being able to have an evaluation for a child. So the brochure just mentions how community members and parents can reach out to the Child Find Office if they suspect that a child is in need of an evaluation or might have a disability. The Child Find Office is here to help and support the community in finding children who are in need of services, because we in the Child Find Office want to be able to provide services to children as soon as possible. Instead of waiting, it's best to try and find them throughout the community and get the services for them early on. Also, part of our Child Find outreach, the Dallas ISD Child Find partners with many agencies throughout the Dallas area to identify, locate, and evaluate. And those agencies and partners include residential facilities, daycare centers, early childhood intervention providers, Head Start, hospitals, and healthcare professionals. So we're working with hospitals, healthcare offices, the local Head Start, getting information out there to the community so that everyone can learn about Child Find, so that hospitals and different agencies are aware of Child Find, so that if they find students that might need services, they can also refer them to us so that we can get them the help that they need. So our Child Find team members participate in outreach activities to assist the Dallas Independent School District find children in need of specialized services. We provide information related to Child Find to local organizations, and we collaborate with private schools.
Child Find collaborative efforts. The Child Find Office works with early childhood intervention agencies.
Child Find contact information. Child Find contact information is we have a Child Find office that has a referral line, and the telephone number for the referral line is 972-581-4210. We have an outreach specialist, and her name is Yolanda Harris Holloway. Her telephone number is 972-581-4344. So if there's ever any community outreach services that are going on out there and you would like some representation from the Child Find Office, she's the one that you can contact. We can provide brochures and different information about Child Find to your community organization. And then my name is Monica Freeman Fields. I'm the Child Find supervisor, and my number is 972-581-4280.
To evaluate students that are transitioning from early childhood intervention services to school district services when eligible. Child Find social workers collaborate with early childhood intervention and families to begin the transition process. The Child Find Office works with local nonprofit private schools and homeschool parents. Consultation meetings are held with local private school representatives to ensure that students in need of service plans are offered the services that they require. The Child Find mission is to efficiently and effectively support the Dallas Independent School District's duty to identify, locate, and evaluate children from birth to 21 years of age with known or suspected disabilities who reside in and or attend school within district boundaries.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. We have one question from your presentation.
Yes.
Is Child Find offered in all elementary schools for pre-K 3?
So Child Find is a district program, and it applies to all children between the ages of 3 and 21, all children and students.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't see any more questions for your presentation at this time, so we'll move on to Ms. Rockcamp, please.
Hi, good evening. Okay, I am with the Special Education Department. I work with the specialized programs classrooms, which is our self-contained classrooms, for students with significant cognitive disabilities. And I'm going to discuss 10 things you could do for a great school year. Next slide. So our first item on the list is attend the Back to Campus or Back to School Meet the Teacher night. This is a really great way to get to know your child's teacher, ask about the systems that they'll have in place, see where they'll be sitting, and also let your teacher know about your child. What do they like, dislike? So it's a really great time to see what the school year will be like for your child. Next slide. Attend parent-teacher conferences in the fall and the spring. You'll receive a list from your teacher about how to sign up. This is, again, another really great way to see how our students are progressing, get to meet the teacher, check in, and just see what's going on in the classroom. Definitely sign up for the Dallas ISD Parent Portal. You can get live updates about attendance for the school day, assignments and lessons, and you should be able to speak with your classroom teacher as well. Another really great way to start the school year is establish a routine. So we have an example here of a bedtime routine. Take a bath, brush teeth, put on your jammies, story time, and this one says hugs, which is just so cute. But routines are so important for helping students get aligned into what to expect. You could do a morning routine, that you can create a visual just like this or a checklist just to help them wind down and prepare for the evening and the school day ahead. Always ask your teacher for a copy of your child's IEP. They can definitely send it to you via email. They can send it home. You can go to the campus and pick it up. But that should be available to you at any time of the year. You do not have to wait until their annual IEP meeting. You can ask your teacher or your campus principal for that documentation at any time. Develop a partnership with your child's teacher. You are your child's best advocate. It is a great way to get to know your child's teacher, what paraprofessionals might be in that classroom, what the routines are. And many of our teachers are just dying to get to know you too, and they want to hear from you. So definitely work on introducing yourself, keeping in touch with your classroom teachers because they want to get to know you too. Number 7 is read to and with your child. This actually fits into routines. This is a really great winding down the day, right before bed routine, to work on, each evening, even 20 minutes a night with your child. Next slide. Limit your child's screen time. As many of you may know, once they have an iPad, it may be very difficult to take it away, and it makes those transitions very difficult also. We can, instead of using iPads and TV time, use more tactile materials like blocks and puzzles to just change it up a little bit and help them explore other materials in their environment. Create a launch pad. This is something you can think of like a command center to help your child become organized. Having their backpack and their shoes all in the same place. Some children work really well with having their clothes laid out for them the night before in the same place. Just helps them work through those routines a little bit easier and quicker if we know where everything is and we're able to know what to expect. And ask questions. Do not be shy. If there's something in your child's IEP, or if there's a lesson that's being sent home or homework, always ask questions. You don't have to wait until that IEP meeting to ask questions. You can call the school, request a one-on-one meeting with the teacher. Always, always, always. Next slide.
Okay.
Oh,
Ms.
that's
Johnson?
it.
Yeah, I do have a question here from one of the parents is can you tell us what an IEP is and
Oh, yes.
how they can access that?
Oh, absolutely. If your child receives special education services, they will have an IEP, which stands for an individualized education plan. And that is, it is a legal document that you would work with your teacher, your principal, and your campus to determine goals to help your child navigate the education system on a level playing field. So you would know after a child's evaluated, they would have they're still called ARD meetings, ARD, which it stands for Admissions, Dismissal, and Review Committee, or IEP meeting. And you are a member of that committee, and you have, you're able to offer input to the teacher and campus and what you would like your child to work on as well. Did that answer the question?
Yes, ma'am. And I believe those are all the questions that are pertaining to special ed.
Sure.
So thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, ladies. We are going to take a short break before we get on to our next presentation. I see a lot of questions that are generalized, that are more specific to campuses and to opening the school and dates for Meet the Teacher and things like that. So I just wanted to remind parents to go to their campus websites and call the campus, because some of them may have different hours. They're not all the same, and we have our different calendars that are going to be showing next during our break, so you can see those as well. And again, we will be recording all these questions, and we will direct them to the people who can answer them best. So we will have those answered for you within the next few days. Also, a reminder, all of these presentations are being recorded, so they will be available on our webpage starting next week, which is dallasisd.org/family. So go there and you'll be able to find these recordings and watch them over again and share the information with other parents as well. So again, we're going on a short break, and don't go too far because we have some information on the slides that hopefully will be helpful as well. We'll see you in a little bit. Yes. Welcome back. Thank you, everybody, for your help. Let's see, we're going to next go on to our next presentation, which is Ms. Sakia Johnson, who's representing our Homeless Education Department, and she will discuss support systems in place for our homeless families. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Sakia Johnson. I'm a coordinator with the Homeless Education Program, and I'm glad to be here to be able to share some great information with you all to help you in your new school year. So first, let's talk about what our mission and our vision for our program is. First, our vision is to empower and encourage confidence, inspiration, independence, and stability with every homeless child and youth in Dallas ISD. Our mission is to provide strategic advocacy of services that inspire confidence, create opportunities, and establish stability for Dallas ISD children and youth in transition in order for them to succeed in school. Next. So when you think about those families who are considered homeless, they would be considered homeless if they lack a regular and adequate nighttime residency. And so what that means is that those families who are identified and going through a situation of transition, they may not have an adequate nighttime residency. They may move at unpredictable times. And so with that, as soon as they're identified, we want to really make sure that we make contact with them immediately and identify needs and try to address those needs as soon as possible. Next. Also, based on the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, the examples of homelessness are the examples that are also utilized in the student residency questionnaire that is filled out at the time of enrollment. With those definitions, one of those definitions are, of course, sharing the housing of other persons due to a loss of housing, economic hardship, or similar reasons. Those are the families who we identify as living doubled up with families or friends. Then we also know that we have those families who are identified as homeless that live in homeless motels, hotels. We also know that we have families who live in emergency or transitional shelters. And with those families those families that tend to couch surf quite a bit and they transition in and out of these different living arrangements, those families, again, we definitely want to make sure that we identify those, because at that time, once we identify those, we try to make sure that we keep you connected by reaching out to you and connecting you to different opportunities that we have throughout the year. And we also know that we have families who may not be living in either of these definitions that I've mentioned. They may actually live in cars or abandoned buildings. And honestly, the best thing that we try to do at that moment is make sure that we safety plan in that moment and get those families to a safe environment so that they can be able to receive assistance immediately. Next slide. So with the rights of those students and families who are experiencing homelessness, we know that when those students come to our campuses, we want to make sure that if transportation is needed or if that serves as a barrier to those students getting back and forth to their home school, we want to make sure that our program advocates for those families, either providing out-of-district transportation, which consists of a car or a bus, or bus passes that we can be able to supply to those families. With the bus passes, that process takes about 24 to 48 hours to process based on your request. And of course, for the out-of-district transportation, that takes about 3 to 5 business days to process. One thing that we always make sure that when we're doing and looking at the transportation, we want to make sure that we always consider if it's in the best interest of the student to be able to provide that. And then also we want to make sure that as those students go to school, that they're being enrolled immediately, even with the absence of no documentation such as shop records, social security cards, or birth certificates. We also know that those families and students get free school meals, and they also can get assistance with school supplies and other needs based on our assessment. And then they can also receive extra support for your youth by actually being able to provide resources as we assist them with their basic needs. And we definitely want to make sure that once that student residency questionnaire is filled out, the question at the bottom that asks if there are any 0 to 5 students is filled out with a yes or a no. And once we find that those students have those younger siblings, we want to make sure that we're connecting them to early childhood services immediately. Next slide.
Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm being asked if you could slow down a little bit so that the interpreters can keep up, please. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So safety planning. As a parent, you want to make sure that you're having a conversation with your family and your students about a family password. What a family password is a secret word you and your children determine together. You sit down and you talk about that password, and you actually come up with a word that you all would know, in addition to the families who would be picking that child up from school or anyone who is acquainted with that person. Next slide. Also, in your situations, as you transition between different living arrangements, we also want to make sure that you all are providing stability to your students. A couple of things that you can do to provide stability to those students is establishing a regular routine that you can do every night, such as reading a book or making sure that you connect with your child and ask them about their day. Also, you want to make sure that you're connected with teachers or any other school staff throughout the year to make sure that, again, you stay connected and that you're giving assistance with any resources that you may need. Then you also want to make sure that you talk to your child about the situation, just enough to keep them informed, but not too much to keep them overwhelmed. And then you also want to make sure that you're giving and modeling consistent, clear rules throughout the year so that your child knows what to expect and so that they're comfortable through the transition. Next slide. So once those families are identified, we at that time then want to make sure that as we help them with basic needs, that we also let them know of their next future steps and what to do in their next future steps. A couple of things that need to be considered are out-of-district transportation. With out-of-district transportation, if you have a student who will be residing outside of the school district after you receive permanent residency, make sure that you reach out to us so that we are able to advocate for those students to receive transportation through a car or bus to get back and forth to their home school. Also, you want to make sure that you withdraw those students from their school if you're planning on leaving the school district. This step is very important so that you can make sure that you have the correct withdrawal paperwork to take to your next school for the next following year as you enroll at the school in the zoned area. We also want to make sure that you're planning ahead. If you know that your student will be leaving the school district or you have moved to an area that is outside of Dallas ISD borders, make sure that you're aware that you can receive assistance through our program with out-of-district transportation or any assistance through our program for the remainder of that school year. But make sure that you're well aware that for that following school year, you will have to enroll at your zone school in the district where you are residing. Next slide. So again, as you are identified through our program, we can assist you with enrollment advocacy, school transportation in 2 forms, as mentioned earlier, school uniforms, and school supplies. We can also provide emergency food and hygiene items to you throughout the year. And we can also provide you with assistance with resources and referrals for food in the community or housing opportunities or any other specific needs that we assess based on contact with you. We also want to make sure that in addition to providing you with your basic needs assistance, that we are able to provide you with referrals to those necessary supports inside the district for counseling and or medical services as needed. Next slide. So please make sure that once you enroll, that if you're living in this situation or any of these definitions you've recognized have pretty much, caused you to realize that you have identified or you are transitioning out of a living arrangement, please give us a call at 972-749-5750 or reach out to us at homelesseducation@dallasisd.org. We are actually a team of 5. So even beyond reaching out to us at our main line or the main email, you can definitely reach out to us individually anytime throughout the year for assistance because we are here to help you. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. That was great information. I do have one question, and I'm not sure if it pertains to this program, but they're asking how to register a student. So in the regarding the services, how do parents register for your assistance or support?
Once you enroll, you would actually fill out a student residency questionnaire, which identifies your living arrangement. And at that time, that information is given to us by the registrar at those campuses. And at that time, you can also let them know of your needs.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Great information, Ms. Johnson. Thank you once again for presenting. That our second presentation. We're going to take another break before we go to our last presentation of the evening. Make sure you look at the slides during the break. It has great information on a registration event that we will be hosting August 7th at Townview Center parking lot. It's a drive-through session and you can enroll your students at that time. So just look for the information on the slides coming up. We will be right back. Thank you. All right, so we're back and we're here for our last presentation, which will be given by Ms. Sandra Martinez along with Ms. Jane Santa Cruz, which will be talking about managing stress with mindfulness. Ladies.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to be going at this solo tonight, so I hope that's okay. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's always such a pleasure to be able to connect with our parents and caregivers, staff, and community members here in Dallas. And I have just a really simple question really quickly. Who's stressed? If you're stressed, raise your hand, right? And I can raise one and I'll probably raise both, right? So we hear you. The Social Emotional Learning Department hears you loud and clear. This past year has been really challenging for most of us. And we really wanted to be able to provide parents and caregivers strategies to practice self-awareness and self-management as a way to work through stress to build positive interactions within your family, even when stress levels are high, because we know that stressors are always going to be there. So the real answer then to that is, how do we manage or how do we work through that? Next slide, please. So we're going to be spending our time today, just really quickly, a warm welcome, just checking in on you and see how you're doing. We'll talk about how to manage stress with mindfulness. We'll talk a little bit about what stress means, what it means to your brain, and then in turn, what happens to your body. We'll have a few minutes to do a mindfulness activity, which is going to be breath awareness. And we'll have some time to answer some questions. And then we'll end off with an optimistic closing. Next slide, please. So as a warm welcome, we always want to find out how you're doing. On the screen, you'll see it's called an internal weather report. And this is very similar to some of the things that we do with students in class. This I like because it's very visual. Sometimes it's hard to bring into words how we're feeling. It might be a mixture of different things. And this is a really great visual that you can use at home with your children. You can use this yourself. I use this all the time. I use this with all my, most of my participants. And it's a moment to really reflect on how you're feeling. This is something that you would do throughout the day, maybe at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, at the end of the day. And so if you would like to, in the chat, just how are you feeling today? If you had to report it as a weather report, how are you feeling today? For me personally, I think I'm kind of in a C and a D. I'm really excited to be here, but I also have a lot of other projects that I'm working on. And so I'm, sunny, but just a little cloudy because I know that I have a lot of work ahead of me coming into this next year, and I want to make sure that I do really well. So it's really great, to just check in, see how you're feeling. You may even want to write this down throughout the day. This is part of being self-aware. That will then also help you with how to then, what strategy you're going to use to help manage your emotions, right? Your internal weather, because it's either going to be, okay, I want to stay here. How do I keep, staying in this state of my emotions? Or how do I then change? What can I do to change that? Next slide, please. The social emotional learning competencies that we're going to be working on today are self-awareness, or identifying our emotions, and self-management. What do we do with these emotions? There are a total of 5 competencies that are given to us by CASEL, which is the foremost experts on social emotional learning. The other 3 are considered are social awareness, which is empathizing with others. How do we, relate to others, as relationship skills, and then responsible decision making. How we take all of these 4 competencies. How do we understand our emotions? What do we do with those emotions? And then how do we relate to others? And as you can see, these competencies are not something that is just, in a silo. It's actually competencies that are all the way across, right? So it not only happens in the classroom, in school, but also within our families and in our communities, right? So these are lifelong skills that we all work on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Did you know that there's decades of research that indicates that children are far better prepared to lead in life if they've learned social and emotional competencies in addition to academic skills? We see that there's an increase in academic performance, attitude, and behavior, and we also see a decrease in negative behaviors and emotional stress. Next slide, please. So let's talk briefly about our brains and stress. Stress is how our bodies react to situations or stressors. We're about to start a new school year after having experienced a really challenging year. We've all experienced a collective trauma, and we'll probably be working through that for a while. It's really important to address our own mental health, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of our families. And when we value self-care, stress reduction, and social emotional learning, we can better model it for our children and our families. In talking with families, have ever hoped and dreamed that their children grow up to be stressed, right? So it's really a great idea to start practicing stress reduction so that we can model it for our children. So what happens with our brain is, it's really complex, but at the same time, it's set up for just survival. If we were to be chased by a bear, our bodies would react. They would go into fight, flight, or freeze. The amygdala enlarges. It sends signals and hormones that are released so that we don't think, we just react, right? Hormones are released to help you through the situation, like adrenaline and cortisol, that help you get away and keep your body safe. So a quick burst of energy happens. There's heightened alertness, a burst of increased immunity happens. But what if our bears aren't actually bears, but instead situations like traffic, trauma, losing your job, financial strain, the pandemic, right? Stress can come from external sources. And they can also come from internal sources. So the idea of being a perfect parent or being, the perfect partner, right? These are things that we and impose on ourselves. And so this can actually also create high levels of stress. Our brain doesn't know the difference between a bear chasing us and traumas or stressors that we face. Things like, like I mentioned, like the pandemic and maybe our, families, or that email that you get from your boss, right? And so then what happens is that these stressors kind of on top of each other. So our body really is not equipped to have these hormones and these stressors for a long period. They actually cause really negative experiences. We see that there are issues with blood pressure. We see immune issues. We see chronic inflammation, right? Chronic pain. And so then what do we do with that, right? So what happens with that? So next slide, please. Previous one. If we could go backwards, that would be great. Thank you. One more. Thank Thank you so much. Okay, so noticing, so being aware of how we, so we know what stresses us out. So what happens to our bodies? Well, this can be different for everybody, depending on what stresses you out, right? Because what stresses me out may not be something that really even, is a blip on your radar, right? But there are certain things that happen to our body. So just reflecting on that, what symptoms of stress do you typically experience? Right? Because now we're identifying, we're saying, okay, we're being aware. Things like heart racing, maybe you're shaking, maybe you can't concentrate, headaches, body pains, tightness around the shoulders, perhaps in your back, lower back, tingling in your hands, feeling lightheaded. Your breathing changes. So many times you see when, especially, people are having, like we consider panic attacks based on the reaction to a stressor, and perhaps they breathe faster, shallower. Sometimes you hold your breath. Things like that change. You experience insomnia, deep fatigue, your mood changes, your eating habits change, right? You may have stomach pains or digestion problems. All of these are things that we all experience in different varieties. It's not all inclusive, right? Everybody handles stress differently, but it's really important to kind of start pinpointing and saying, oh yeah, this is probably what happens to me. We know that when you learn to relax your body with stress management, you really provide that pause between the event and then your reaction. And so that just gives you a moment just to pause. And so today, I want to really talk to you about mindfulness. Next slide, please. As a way to really handle stress or work through stress. Because again, stress is always going to be there. We can't get rid of that, right? But how do we then manage, or how do we then work through that? Mindfulness is really, being in the moment, noticing your physical being, our emotions, our environment with kindness, curiosity, and in a non-judgmental way in order to find calm, right? It's important to note too what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not something that you have to wear a certain outfit for, that you have to go to a certain place to do, that you have to, buy, anything for. It's something that you do on your, it's something that you do and you carry with you. We're not sitting for hours upon hours, cross-legged, or we're trying to empty out our brain or, just clear our brain completely. It's not actually that. What we are doing though is really concentrating on what is happening right this very moment. Our brain will wander. It does go into thinking about, when you're practicing breathing and breathing techniques, you'll start thinking about things like, okay, what do I need to buy for, to make for dinner tonight? Those type of things. And that's fine. That happens. What we're really trying to do is really just practice acknowledging that thought, and then coming back to the breath, right? That's the moment of mindfulness. You are mindful of the fact that your brain just strayed, and now we're bringing it back. So we're really just making space for our emotions and noticing those emotions, noticing the physical state of where we are at that moment, and without labeling it as it being good or bad or anything like that. Okay. Next slide, please. So what we're practicing today is called mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, that was made popular by Jon Kabat-Zinn. However, I do want to take note that, take a moment, to really honor the roots of mindfulness. Jon Kabat-Zinn did not invent this here in the United States. As far as we know, mindfulness has its roots in both Africa, specifically Egypt and South Asia. And we know that these practices are years old, 5,000 years old if we go by recorded history, and probably even older. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese spiritual leader, poet, and peace activist who's primarily responsible for popularizing mindfulness in the Western world. This is for everyone. This is used for stress relief, for chronic pain reduction. It is science-based and accessible for anyone. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits that we see is an increase in patience. So because we're practicing being patient with ourselves, better focus and productivity. There's increased compassion because we are practicing being compassionate with ourselves during the practice. A heightened body awareness, so we're aware of what's happening in our body, our emotions, our physical sensations, and less stress and anxiety by learning how to be more cognizant and choiceful about what we think about. And then that helps us our brains to reduce stress and anxiety. Next slide, please. And as we go into the breath awareness, this learning container, and I would like to call this a learning container, right? This is where we're learning how to do this. A couple of things, just listen to your body. Your body's super wise. Do what feels comfortable for you. If you need a break, that's fine. Give yourself what you need. Well, experiences, each time we practice, there's an opportunity for new thoughts, feelings, and sensations. What you feel today practicing may not be the same thing that you feel tomorrow, right? Every day is different. Every moment is different. Every moment matters, right? Show up just as you are. As you feel or as you find yourself without any criticism. And lastly, we're going to be practicing for about, I would say about 10 minutes. So please find a comfortable location, whether it be your chair. You can do the sitting down in your chair. If you'd like to lay down on your bed or maybe the floor. You may even want to build a little nest of pillows that is always really comfortable. Our body temperature does go down when we don't move a lot. So, if you want to have a light blanket, you can. Otherwise, just sitting here, we can do this, this practice as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, we're going to be working on mindful breathing. And in particular, mindful breathing is helpful because it provides us with an anchor, which is the breath, right? That we can focus on when we get, when we're in a stressful situation. Mindful breathing can also help us stay present in the moment rather than being distracted by things that maybe happened, 5 minutes ago, 1 minute ago, yesterday, last week, last year, right? And then also distracted by the past. The future. A lot of times we wake up and we're not even in the moment. We're already thinking about what's next, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, and so this really just helps us concentrate on what is happening right now. And we're going to be using the breath as an anchor. Again, this is all just so you understand as we go through it. We're going to be inhaling and exhaling. We're going to be using that as our anchor. So when your thoughts go away, just coming back to the breath, okay? Because regulating your breath is really a domino effect. Your breath regulates your nervous system and brain, which then regulates your attention, your impulses, and your emotions. So let's begin. Okay, again, just finding a comfortable position, using the breath as an anchor or something that we return to each time to come to the present moment. Because there's always a new breath, a new opportunity to start again, and you carry your breath with you. So this is a tool that you have already in your toolbox. So I invite you to set an intention for your practice. Your intention could be, patience, or maybe self-compassion, or simply allowing yourself to be curious about this practice. And wherever you are, finding a posture of dignity, allowing your back to have an upright but comfortable posture. And I always imagine like a crown on our head, right? If we had a crown, how would we sit? Maybe you might need to move around a little bit to find that spot that's comfortable for you. And when you're ready, simply allowing your eyes to close if that's comfortable for you. Or you can also just have your eyes just move away from the screen, keeping a soft, focused gaze on the floor a few feet in front of you, maybe even away from the screen. And then noticing the places where your body's making contact with the chair. Maybe your feet are on the floor. Making contact on the bed if you're laying down, or the floor. And if you could invite your body to offer itself to gravity, allowing the body to be held by the stability underneath you, and letting the hands land wherever they want to be. Maybe it's on your lap, maybe they're on your knees or at your side. Wherever they just naturally land is fine. And then inviting your fingers to soften a little bit, allowing the shoulders to move away from your ears, your arms to hang heavy. Notice the sounds that are around you. Maybe it's the voice in the next room. Maybe it's a car passing by. Whatever it is, just noticing them. Try not to label or judge it or start an internal story about it, just noticing. Shifting your focus now to your breath. Noticing the movement of your body during each breath. Not trying to change it. Just noticing it. Maybe you feel movement in your chest or your shoulders. Maybe it's your belly. And if you're having a hard time pinpointing it, you can always move your hand to your chest if that feels comfortable, or to your belly area. And as you're breathing in, silently say to yourself, I'm breathing in or inhaling. And as you breathe out or you're releasing the air, say I'm breathing out or exhaling. I'm breathing in, and breathing out. Noticing the slight pause between your inhale and your exhale. Letting your body breathe naturally, inviting the experience of sitting here, breathing in to be just as it is without needing to change it in any way. Curiously observing the sensation of the air coming in through your nose. Does the air feel fresh to you? Then it flows down the back of your throat, filling the chest and belly. And then as you exhale, is the air warmer? Without changing it, just noticing it. And when your mind wanders, because it will, and we knew that it would, just gently nudging your thoughts back to your breath. Let those thoughts just pass by like a cloud, acknowledging the thought clouds and then gently returning to the breath. And if you're comfortable with it, place your hands on your chest, one on top of the other, over your heart, or you can put it on your shoulder, maybe giving yourself a hug, or maybe you put your hands on your belly, whatever's comfortable for you. And then silently saying to yourself, I am okay. I am safe. I am loved. Slowly returning to the breath and breathing in and breathing out. at your own pace. When you're ready, shifting your attention to the sensations again of your body, the contact points of your body against a chair, sofa, bed, floor, wherever you were. Feeling your body from the tips of your toes to the top of your head. Inviting you to slowly and gently stretch. Maybe you wiggle your fingers and toes. Maybe you rub your hands together. Maybe even placing your hands over your eyes, right? And if your eyes were closed, gently fluttering them open, allowing your awareness to include the room, the objects, and the people in your environment. And as we conclude this practice, I leave you with the following quote that I think is so important as we go into this next year. No matter how chaotic it is, the wildflowers will still sprout in the middle of nowhere. Thank you. Next slide, please. So you may be saying, okay, this is great. I don't have a ton of time to do this, right? I can't stop in the middle of the day and do this. How can I then use this same concept, at work or at home? What can I show my child, right? How can I include my children in this breathing exercise? Well, we have what we call starfish breathing. It uses the same concept. It's a moment to really go from this, mindful to a mindfulness, right? So the idea is to really synchronize the movement, the breath, and the gaze, right? So we're really understanding how all three of them are connected. And so we use a starfish, or some of the older kids, sometimes we say take 5. And really what you do is you just make a starfish with your hand. And yeah, there you go. With one hand, and you spread your fingers wide. You put the index finger from the other hand on the outer base of the thumb. And what we're going to do is just trace the outline of the starfish hand, right? And we're going to keep looking at our pointer finger while you do your breathing. So inhale, your finger traces to the top of the thumb. Exhale, the finger traces down the other side of the thumb. And then you repeat. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. And you repeat this until you've traced the outline of the starfish hand. So after your starfish breathing, you can have your child place their hands on their chest to continue breathing mindfully as they silently recall maybe 3 things for which they're grateful, or you can even have them repeat, I am okay, I am safe, I am loved. Experts believe regular practice of mindful breathing like this can really make it easier to do these type of breathing strategies in difficult situations. It can help to set aside a designated time for mindful breathing, but it can also help to practice it when you're feeling particularly stressed or anxious, right? So this is not something that you would just like spring on your kids when they're in the middle of something, or yourself, right? When you're in the middle of something for the first time. You would want to practice this when you're not so anxious or you're not so stressed, so that when you do have those moments, and they're going to happen, that you're ready for it. Next slide, please. So a few other things. Mindfulness is not just about breathing. You can actually practice mindfulness in all different types of settings. You can do mindful listening. So something similar, right? We kind of touched on it a little bit when I asked that you listen to the things that are in your surroundings, right? And so you would extend that to where that would be your anchor. When your mind floats away, you come back to to what you're hearing, right? And you'd be surprised at the type of things that you can actually hear when you put your mind to it, right? Another thing that you can do is walking. What does your body feel like as you're walking around? Thinking about the pressure on your toes, where your hands are moving, how your body is gliding through, right? What would it feel like to to walk, outside without shoes on, what kind of sensations, sensations would that bring? We can draw mindfully, brushing our teeth, right? So brushing your teeth or washing your hands. Some of the questions is, what do I see? What do you see? You see the soap suds, maybe you see, the toothpaste. What do I taste? What does it taste like? What do I hear? What sensations arise and what do I feel, right? We're in this moment, we're right here. You can even do mindful eating. Remember to just notice it without judging or without labeling, right? We're not saying this is great or I'm doing awful. This is, we're not judging, we're just noticing these emotions, what comes up when we're actually involved in these strategies. Next slide, please. A couple of other resources that you might, there is, not mindful breathing or breath awareness may not be your thing, right? There's so many other things that you could do, like what I previously mentioned, but there's also apps, there's books, there's podcasts. Some of them are free, others do require memberships or fees. But there are several that are free. Videos on YouTube, there are things that we have on our website as well. And I'm going to be sharing that website here in a minute. They're available in multiple languages, things that for your children, things together. There's singing bowls, there's chimes, there's calming glitter bottles. There's a video available on our website with instructions on how to create your own. I actually have one on my desk at all times, right? It's these calming glitter bottles. And, again, we have these type of resources available on our website to share with families. Next slide, please. And we're right at our time, I think. If you have any questions, please feel free, to ask in the Q&A. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And while those are populating, if we can go to the next slide, please. Just, thinking about your experience with the breath awareness, thinking about how it might help you or even how you might be able to share this information with someone else. Thinking about how you can utilize this mindful practice with someone else to help them with something that maybe they're going through. And just really reflecting on that. Next slide, please. Here's our website information. We do have resources available in English and in Spanish. We also have many resources, self-care for self-care at home with many different links. These are available in, I believe, in Swahili, in Burmese, in Portuguese, in several other different languages. I think there's like 7 or 8 different languages. Please feel free to, these are all free, and these are all available for you on these on the websites listed here. Please feel free to contact me directly. There is my information is listed on there if you have specific social emotional learning questions beyond this particular session. So that is, I hope that you enjoyed today's session, and I hope that your year is amazing. And I will take any questions, I guess now, Ms. Virginia.
Yes, ma'am. I just have one question here. How can parents access these kinds of relaxation tips that you explained at school while they're at school? Would there be anybody that will use these options at school, or do they have to be a special request for them?
No, so thank you. That's a great question. Actually, our social emotional learning department is, we do have several different coordinators that work with all the schools. I would ask maybe the school counselor. There is usually a SEL champion at each of the campuses, or the majority of the campuses, and they are able to help with this. We are actually rolling out this year social emotional learning explicit instructions, explicit lesson plans for campuses. And so if they haven't already, many of them already do these to some degree. They are going to be implementing several more strategies to on campuses for students. Now, I will say that, we do know that families and caregivers are really our children's first teachers, right? And so if we model it, if we use it, and we explain to them how they're using it or how they can use it, then they're more likely going to apply it and they're going to take it to school. And so, yes, I would say to school counselor, but then also within our website listed here, you can find all of these resources. There's, videos of me creating, the jar. There's, creating these little nifty little breathing, tools that they can use, going through different, breathing strategies, the butterfly where we're breathing, rainbow, things like that, alligator. And so all of these things are accessible on our website. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Those were all the questions that we've had on our Q&A section.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this great way to end our forum, and we appreciate your help. That concludes our presentations for this evening and also for our virtual family forum. I want to thank all of our presenters from the last 3 days and the interpreters for their time and information. And a special thank you to all of you, our families who have logged on this evening or any of the evenings previous. We hope this information has been helpful. Please let us know how we did by taking a few minutes to fill out the survey. You may find it by using the link that's below, and we'll put it on the Q&A section, or you can use the QR code as well. Your input is valuable and it helps us to plan future events that are most beneficial for families. So thank you in advance for filling it out. If you filled out one of these either Tuesday or Wednesday in our previous sessions, we ask that you also fill one out for this evening as well. We will leave this link up or in the QR code up for the next few minutes. After you complete the survey, you're free to log off as this ends our forum. Thank you once again, and we wish you a happy, healthy, and successful school year. We are here to help in any way we can. Good night.